talking about this little girl, she said
I like jokes.
she was, her teacher said, had her to draw, and she's,
Okay.
little girl, and she said, what are you drawing? Just a minute, she said,
She
what
got
are you
fun
drawing?
part.
Can I-
She said, what are you drawing? She
I'm
said,
gonna
I'm drawing
stop y'all.
God.
Let's just
And she
try
said, well, you don't know what God looks like. And the little girl said, they will now.
Okay, let's just try to
You
stay
think you know?
focused on the book because we have so much, good information we can get from this. So Jessica, did you have anything that you wanted to add? What was your job?
I was the character informant, so
Okay.
I kind of looked at Harriet as a character and how she developed. I really thought she was a very strong character. She was relatable because she did have moments of doubt and, she struggled, especially when she was, I believe when she was in the potatoes,
yeah.
for a long time. So she was, she had those moments of doubt and stuff, but she was able to overcome it. And I really thought it was interesting too, just the sacrifices she made. In leaving her family that first time, she was willing to leave everything for freedom. And just reading that, I was like, I don't know if I could do that. And it was just kind of a very strong person that she.
Well, I think that what you said about being relatable goes back to what you said as the illustrator, because you see that even though her sacrifices and situation, they were different, and it's a completely different time period, but yet, she still has those doubts and weaknesses like we have, in our lives. So that was a good point that you made.
There's something that Jessica just said that made me think, and I wrote it on mine because I was supposed to do key events and their importance or significance. And so on page 1, when she says that she's sleeping beside her husband one last time, and she didn't even tell him, it reminds me of a book that we read in our class called Night John.
Mhm.
And sometimes they were paired with their females and males were
Right.
paired together. It wasn't like they were married. I mean, like they got to choose. And so I know it's really bad. And because the slave owners were just for, like, they just wanted to procreate. And so that made me wonder, did she leave her husband? Because she didn't even seem sad really about leaving her husband. And later, it was never even mentioned. It just said her, people back. And so I wondered about that. Was that her husband by choice, or was it just her husband?
But even her husband, her kids, so we were.
Yeah, but she mentioned that later, but she never mentioned him again. She just said she was sleeping by her husband. And it made me wonder, but just because we just finished that other book.
So you made a text-to-text connection.
Right,
kind of.
text to text,
Had
yes.
some questions.
And it just made me wonder, but then I thought on the other side, if it really was, somebody that she was in love with, she was very determined. And I think somebody said that earlier. I think you said that, Miss Hastings, when you said that, they were very determined. And so she was willing to leave. Ms. Richardson, would you like me to get that?
No. let's
Okay.
just-
There was a line in it, and I didn't write all of it, but she said something about she reaches for the sun, and I thought like the sun was kind of that symbol of the freedom that like she was looking for and reaching for and wanting to like fight for.
So overall, do you all feel like the author portrayed the story in a good light for kids to read? I mean, would you think that this would be something that kids would get a lot out of when they read it? Or how do you feel like the way the author wrote it? I mean, I know it has a lot of, it's got a lot of references to spiritual things. So did you feel like the author did a good job of just kind of conveying the overall message in the book? Or
I like how the author, and this goes along with that, but the author and the artist sort of combine the text with the words, the actual physical presence of the text with what God was saying was set apart from the other text
yeah.
with the words at the same time of describing how she motivated herself through God's talk or how God motivated
I
her
noticed
to be
that
on
too.
her side.
And yeah, no, go ahead.
I made a note of that, just kind of like my favorite part. On that note, like when she was at a low point again and the words circle around him, like he's circling around her, I really like that.
I don't think there's
You know what,
a-
it's so funny because,
Go ahead.
okay. I liked it because when you notice that, because I think sometimes when we read, we typically kind of try to skip over some of the picture things sometimes. And so I found myself maybe not as focused on those words that were in, and then I thought, okay, I'm missing, and I had to go back and really look at that.
I think sometimes we get too nervous in school if the word God is in something, that we just totally shy away from it. You can't, at the very beginning, you can't escape it because Harriet Tubman was in real life called Moses. And you have to start there, and she starts with that. And there's nothing in that book that says, now, if you don't believe in God, something's bad wrong
Right.
with you. It doesn't do that, but it takes the fact that she herself was a believer. You can't take that out of her story.
Right, you can't take her point of
You
view out
can't
of the
take it out of that story. But I tell you, I keep
Right.
coming back to they're powerful, not just beautiful illustrations, but they're beautiful word pictures in that. Because I've got one more I pulled out where it talks about she rose like a sapling. And that's a perfect example, because you think about a sapling, she was new in her freedom, and not new in her faith, but new in her freedom. And so you think about a sapling out in the wild, sometimes that's the toughest tree, you can't break that thing. But it's new, but it's still growing. I thought it was just a beautiful example. And I didn't even have to have a picture to see that in my head, but she was like that.
Thank you that you noticed that. That was excellent.
There was something too, I thought about when we were talking about the staff earlier, and I wanted to mention it, but I've been doing a lot of talking and I'm gonna take over, but I'm going to. The staff is kind of like foreshadowing almost for her name, because in the beginning, she wasn't called Moses. And so, so I thought that was, because the foreshadowing is like there, so if you know anything at all, you can connect it even to another text, or, connect it to the Bible as a
Right.
text, or,
Just, to me, I think it shows kids that if you've got a strong passion and a belief for something, and you fight for it, there's no telling what you can do. Because every leader, like her or Martin Luther King, like, they all started with like a passion, like they really truly like believed something and like believed it enough to fight for it. She believed it enough to go back and risk her life over and over and over
She
again.
could easily be killed any point in her life. Any point
And I
in her
think
life.
that just shows how if you do have that passion and that calling, he's gonna use you for that. I mean, she was a tool. He used her as a tool, a powerful tool, and so she's left her mark on history because of that.
Isn't it interesting when you think about it? We think about somebody who goes and rescues it, you picture some big, tough, strong,
yeah.
you don't suspect this little woman
Exactly.
who's small, she was probably about that high, doing what she was able to do.
And I thought, when I read it, I actually thought, like, what a good role model for women as a woman, that she's, I mean, to be black and to be a woman and to live in that time period, what a positive, role model she is for other people.
She
to
paid
gain
a-
strength
She paid a
from.
heavy price. If you've read other books about her, that she was hit in the head
Right.
with something really heavy hard, and she ended up having a sleeping sickness. She would
Yes.
just go to sleep. That didn't stop her. The fact that she suffered the rest of her life physically
Right.
because of that did not stop her.
Okay, does anybody else have anything that you wanted to add?
That's kind of like our book again, though, and I know she was a real person, and Night John was a fictional character. Gary Paulson wrote and said that it was kind of like a compilation. He had read all the slaves' narratives, so it was a compilation. But his passion wasn't freedom for the slaves. It was, but it was in a different way. He said to be able to read and write is freedom, and so he actually got free, and then went back and to teach reading and writing, and would go around, his wife was Night John, he would go around at night and teach them. And the one thing that I had on here as my job, it's to ask the conflicts. Well, it was very obvious that it was slavery, that was the obvious in-your-face conflict, but I felt like a more subtle conflict was self-doubt, because so many times she questioned herself. And that is, I think we can all take that, at times, because there's that self-doubt. But she, like you said, she went above that and
It wasn't just self-doubt, it was her doubting that God was there with her as well. Because at one point, he comes back and he says, the birds picked you up and carried you, and I can carry you, and stuff. So there was the doubt that he was there even with her.
well, maybe self-doubt wasn't the word then, but just doubt.
Right.
Or doubt in her ability to see God moving,
You know what else was with her? Potatoes. When do you think she ever gonna do potatoes again?
Okay,
I've been
that's-
thinking that whole for like 7 days.
I know. She could make
Thank you for
potato
that.
soup.
Thank you for
We
that.
are.
Yeah.
Chris, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? If not, we can wrap up. I just didn't know if you got to share everything from your.
Well, the only
What
other,
was your job again?
I
Did you
was
tell-
I think we did a lot
Oh,
of
we
it,
did?
the connection
Oh, but yes,
specialist.
we did,
So
yes,
we
okay.
connected a lot, obviously it connects to the Bible, I mean,
Very much
directly
so.
and literally.
What is that literary term where it actually does connect back to the
It's an
Bible.
illusion. It's an allusion to
Couldn't
the, it's a
remember.
biblical illusion. I feel like if you don't know the Bible, you're gonna have a hard time with literature anyway, but, there also was a little bit of text to text for me with sort of the Unwound series and the character Connor. And they're not similar in some ways. Well, he's not quite as, faith-driven and calm, but, the way they both become leaders towards the end was another literary text to text, but I think we covered it
That's
fairly
good.
well, so.
I love the way that they said the slaves used the songs to, you know,
Sorry.
Somebody else loved it too.
I love the way they use the songs for hidden message, because I mean, I've read things before, like they put little things out so that slaves would know that that was a safe place, but to get their message through songs, I like that.
Communicate across fields, do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you all today for participating in our literary circle. You all had some very good comments, very insightful things that you said about the book, so I just really appreciate it. I applaud you. Thank